I'll sum it up for you with context. Dungeon Odyssey. It all begins when mankind won the Great War with those in the labyrinth. When this happened, the people from above ground opened the prisoners who were captive. One of them was a baby, but his parents had already passed away. These babies were fed with monster milk, making them have superhuman powers and strength. At the moment I tell this story, one person remains to be released from prison. Afterwards, some soldiers receive him with a blanket. Years later, the boy grew up and decides to come back to the dungeon. This is mainly because he is with a group of boys who want to enter this place to get money for monsters and minerals. Our protagonist's role is as a guide. We are told that the babies born here are obsessed with the labyrinth. However, our protagonist is not, so he decides to hide his true powers. One of the youngsters talks to the chief of exploration that it is likely to be dangerous to be with him. Almost immediately, she replies that he is right, so she brought just in case some bodyguards to protect them from him and the bugs in the labyrinth. At one point, a creature that doesn't inhabit that much nearby appears, making everyone freak out. In response to this, our protagonist tries to stop the bodyguards from shooting, but they don't listen and attack the creature, destroying it. Our protagonist, who for the moment we'll call Ben because I do the summaries at the same time I read this manhwa, makes those ones without weapons go with him. By the time, the chief who does this exploration is exhausted, saying where are we going, and Ben says they are leaving. The woman refuses because they spent a lot of money, so she questions our protagonist thinking he's a coward. So, she tries to take the others with her. But instantly the screams of the monsters are heard, which causes the girl to freak out. Ben then advises her to run away. However, she feels bad because they will leave without telling them anything. But there is no time for small talk, because all her companions end up eaten by the bugs. This makes her stay immobile. However, our protagonist grabs a knife that the woman had and saves her from the enemies. Ben says he will run, but not so fast, because she might die. Just fast enough for both of them to save themselves from the bugs. However, he will break a lot of bones. He runs and later he congratulates the girl for putting up with this situation. Instantly she complains to Ben about why he didn't save the others, because it can be seen that he's very strong. Then Ben clarifies that he was hired as a guide and not as a bodyguard, making with these words the girl feels worse and says that if so, why did he save her? So Ben replies that if she dies, he won't have his money. At the moment of this discussion, a flame is lit, which is the door to the labyrinth. This makes our protagonist to worry, so he plans to run away with the girl. However, the floor where they are collapses. After a while, Ben wakes up, notices that his left arm is broken, and also, he doesn't see the girl he was carrying, getting sad because he won't get his pay. Walking along, he sees a snake ornament on the door, but actually it was real, causing it to bite him and introduce its venom to him, resulting Ben pass away. But Ben later wakes up. He feels that his arm is healthy. He sees from far the girl that we will call from here Yinju. Ben notes that she is still alive, however with mortal wounds. So, he carries her on his back and leaves. Later, Ben returns home. He sees the news of what happened to her, and he is surprised that it all happened so fast. With the money earned, he gives it to his sister in her room. The remaining he will give it to her soon. The moment he stands up, his sister appears crying. He is surprised, but thinks her reaction is out of happiness to have the money for her. So, he gives her the extra for her future wedding, which we will be told about later. However, their dad shows up and witnesses this event. Ben tries to dissemble, but his father is not a fool and tells him not to underestimate him. Even though they are not family, he can handle it. Ben tries to fix the situation. However, his dad says that if he gets money by risking his life, his sister won't use it. The sister, whose name is Hyunji, gives him his money back and goes to her room. Ben becomes puzzled. A while later, his dad tells him to trust them more, not to become self-centered, and that has just happened does not happen again. Our protagonist summarizes this part of the story by saying one word: family. Adopting an orphan from the dungeon gives you a large amount of money and leading to a lot of incidents as a result. So Ben is glad to be lucky to be in this family, even though they have problems with Hyunji's wedding. Ben enters his room after what happened. We are shown that he got a mark after what happened in the labyrinth. It is also discovered that if someone touches this tattoo, a video game-like window opens. Ben notices something in particular about this portal, that he as the owner is not level enough to open a panel. Therefore, Ben touches this kind of window and is teleported to the cave, and he immediately sees the snake. So Ben grabs his hood that he wears as a defense and causes the snake to be tied up. Our protagonist protagonist is ready to fight, but before this, the snake starts talking with telepathy. The animal says that he is inferior and not yet ready for the crown. Nevertheless, he will think that this meeting is about destiny. Ben doesn't understand. He asks himself a lot of questions. Subsequently, the snake wishes him luck for being the new king of the labyrinth and disappears. Ben feels frustrated because he doesn't like labyrinths and he only came in for Hyunji's wedding money. Instantly, she knocks on his door. She thinks to enter. At this, Ben runs to the doorway. Hyunj is surprised that Ben is sweaty. When this happens, a game box is heard. She is glad that his stubborn brother, by his own words, is interested in that because he had no hobbies since he was a kid and he always locked himself in his room and leading her to feel bad about it. And he decides to agree with his sister because after leaving the labyrinth he couldn't think about it for a long time. For the peace he had as a child made him uncomfortable. A while after telling us this, Hyunji leaves. But before that, she apologizes to our protagonist for going to the cave again because of her. Ben says not to worry and plans to give her the money. However, he doesn't have it because he left it in his coat. But just as he plans to go get it, he sees another bug playing with this one. As a result, Ben was shocked. So, he says it will be later because he is now occupied by his new hobby, which leads to his sister being surprised by how excited he is. Ben enters the labyrinth, sees that the enemy is gone, so he looks for his money in his sweater, but he finds nothing. Suddenly, a window appears telling him that if he wants to look for the bug, he must complete the synchronization and activate the labyrinth entrance, which makes Ben angry about why a bug would steal money. Suddenly, he feels tired and sits on a throne. As soon as the cave synchronization appears, Ben activates it. And so, another window appears, but for reloading, at which our protagonist gets tired of this, so he plans to leave. But the window loads to the maximum, so he opts to change with a more Ben-like appearance. Instantly, the imp who stole his money appears, and our protagonist chokes him until he is blue, getting him to give a gem. Ben doesn't want it, but sees it well, and it is a valuable gem. However, the bug gives him another one and throws it at him to leave it alone. Ben proceeds to grab them, but the light blue one falls off, which causes a big light to come out. And that's how this summary ends. Later, a window appears to our protagonist saying that the labyrinth has been damaged, so the restoration and upgrade will be started. This results in Ben panicking because they didn't ask for his order to do this. However, the program ignores this and says that in 24 hours all his durability will be normal, but the upgrade will take a little longer. 4 days later, Hyunji got married thanks to her husband's family. We are also informed that with the gems that Ben got, he has earned about 18 million won, which would be about $15,000. Ben is dissatisfied about this, because he knows he could generate more. But he doesn't complain so much, because it's enough money for a wedding gift. At the time of this, the labyrinth has already loaded its new update, which Ben enters. It pops up many windows giving him context of the update. But omitting all this information, the most important thing he gets is a Naga nest, which as its name indicates, is a nest, however it is of working snakes. It's not what Ben expected. So, newly born, he gives them orders. About 3 of them he asks to go explore, collect, and make a map of passage. The rest to make a warehouse. After an hour, our protagonist has no faith in these bugs because of their silly and robust appearance. But the snakes manage to make the warehouse in an hour. At the same time, a part of the exploration group comes, making Ben feel bad about not joining them. However, the rest of the bugs are fine, except for this one, who we'll call Steve, went ahead to drop these items off at the warehouse. By doing this, the bugs are happy that Ben cares about them, making the bugs increase their work efficiency. After a while, Steve gives him the full labyrinth map. To Ben's surprise, there's good stuff nearby. Steve pulls out stuff he found lying around when he was making the map. Ben is amazed, but he notices that all are old and rusty weapons. However, he sees the kind of gem the imp gave him, so he gets excited and tells Steve that if he sees these to grab them and not to forget to tell this to the group as well. Ben plans to leave the labyrinth, but before that he worries about the Naga hatchlings. Later, Steve is leading our protagonist to see where the gems are. However, before that, Ben reflects on how his life was before. And he already knows why he was uncomfortable with that tranquility when he was a child, and it's because he was just bored. Therefore, Ben sacrifices the gems he obtained a moment ago to improve the labyrinth and summon Naga. But before that, we are shown the things that can be summoned, and they are mostly soldiers to defend the base and a maiden for advice from the labyrinth. The Naga soldier comes out, resulting in Ben giving him the mission to stay close to Naga hatchlings. Now it's the maiden's turn, however. Before this, she comes out in heroic level for using high-level gems. Consequently, we are shown her shape. The first thing she says is master, but with telepathy because she doesn't move her mouth. But she can still speak, telling him what he can do. Faced with this, our protagonist gives her the context of everything that has happened. The maid asks for permission to give him the exploration map, and Ben agrees. The maid, whom we will call Maria, takes him to the places to explain to him what they are for and to help him, because our protagonist has not yet completed the tutorial. Subsequently, Ben asks her what the danger sign means, and Maria tells him that it is a place where there are many bugs and that the Naga hatchlings have not yet fully explored, leading Ben to compliment her on her work. Our protagonist keeps talking to Maria, so at one point Ben tells her that he will go many times to the world above, but that doesn't mean he will neglect the labyrinth. Maria tells him not to worry. However, she tells him that he must expand the cave with more soldiers as quickly as possible, and to achieve this he must use several gems. Ben, as a last question, so as not to necessarily end the tutorial, asks what would happen if he does not follow the Naga's rules. Maria answers that it is likely that some Nagas will rebel or leave, but no one will be able to keep his creatures until someone harms the boss of the labyrinth, who is our protagonist. Only the chosen ones by the labyrinth can do that, and no Naga is foolish to attack them. Finished the talk, Ben focuses to give his best in the labyrinth. Later, our protagonist goes to the store to exchange gems for money. The old man tells him that lately the caves are not doing very well, but Ben found another one in a short time, comparing to the previous time he came. Then the old man speaks about to join him in getting more gems. Ben says no. In response to his refusal, the old man told him to think it over because he saw that Ben had a family to take care of. Because of this comment, Ben angrily breaks the table and asks the old man if he investigated him. The man shouts, telling to listen to him first. It's just that our protagonist was too good to be true, because most people have tragic stories like their brother or father passed away. Plus, it's hard to believe in people who have nothing to protect, because they only have to take care of themselves. This leads to Ben to approach the old man and threaten him that he will meet a dungeon boy if anything happens to his family. Immediately, the old man apologizes and is sad about his table. Ben then leaves. We cut to a flashback. Our protagonist is confused as he doesn't know what's going on. At one point, he hears cries of despair from several people, screaming that the infernal spiders are coming. Within seconds, Ben sees a person get knocked from one of these spiders. This was all a dream, because instantly Ben wakes up in a sweat, to which the creatures of Naga get worried. But our protagonist calms them down by saying it was just a dream of the past. At the instant of this, Ben sees the creatures and laughs, to which Maria takes it as a surprise. Ben responds this reaction by saying that the appearance of the bugs is not so common for a labyrinth. Maria, due to these words, plans to change them, but our protagonist already got used to them. Moments later, the new update of rank 3 comes, achieving that it puts the core of the labyrinth that serves to improve its characteristics, but if they are destroyed, these will be lost. At that moment, he is notified that there are enemies coming to attack, so Maria recommends him to take out more bugs to defend, and to take advantage of the core, because that also helped him to level up and have more Naga creatures. Maria teaches him the leveling power of the soldiers. She urges him to know well which ones to choose and how many. So, with this, Ben flatters Maria, and she rejoices at this gesture. He summons the bugs, causing her to be amazed, but he notices that one of the creatures sees a sad bug. Instantly, Maria gives us the context of this, and the bugs are like Digimons, or so I understood. In short, the way you raise the Nagas will be different physically and mentally, as you are seeing on screen. But sadly, this didn't happen to him. Ben gets sad about this, so Maria leads him to teach him things to grow up well. However, our protagonist says no, that it's better to call everyone where they are, so they can go attack the enemy. I would like to digress. I didn't say it, but these creatures are very proud for honor, so that's why our protagonist goes towards the attack for the Nagas. At that moment, he grabs his weapon, which is a pickaxe, and gives encouragement to his creatures to attack, saying that those bugs will realize that they entered the snake's mouth, and that's how it ends. After this scene, a large herd of rabbits appears to attack. Their leader named Trek encourages them not to follow orders from Labyrinth's leaders. The rabbits decide to attack. They see some Naga hatchlings, so they plan to disappear them. But before they do this, Ben reacts and defeats a large number of enemies, also encouraging his group not to leave any rabbits alive. He succeeds in getting the bugs slaughtered. We cut to a flashback of the leader of the rabbits. He is talking to a person who is trying to convince him to do what is currently happening. Trek says not to be an idiot, as they only exist to serve. However, the subject persuasively tells him that he can be the leader of the labyrinth, going for his goal. Later, he sees the core and jumps to eat it. However, Ben first grabs a spear from a soldier and throws it at the rabbit, managing to finish it off. Ben receives a notification that the core altar has been damaged by 50%. But he sees inside the smoke that the core is fine. Nevertheless, at the moment he sees Trek close to his target, saying in short, he is close to winning, but Ben now defeats him completely. Our protagonist notices that Trek wanted to eat the core, so he asks Maria if that was possible. She replies that with his teeth wouldn't have done nothing. In fact, Ben's spear would have done more damage. Our protagonist gets thoughtful that the rabbit left his companions only to eat his core, and that it was easy for him to do so. Ben says he'll be more careful next time, so he plans to give his spear to the Nagas. But Maria says it's not necessary because that rabbit who passed away was their leader. So, it's just time for all of them to die. In the distance, the person who challenged Trek to do this hears our protagonists from afar. So he goes to what seems to be their leader. He gives him the context of Ben's troops, to which his boss gets angry that he only sent a few rabbits for that arsenal of enemies. But he says that it doesn't matter. Just recruit more rabbits and call the mercenary to take care of that labyrinth to see a nice view afterwards. We move on to Ben, who is looking at a window that gives him context of the battle. Maria congratulates him for winning this first fight, but then she notices that Ben is thoughtful, to which she asks him what is going on. Ben answers that a lot of bad things are really happening since the rabbits easily entered the sanctuary. If these creatures weren't interested in the core, they could have been hurt. At this, Maria sheds tears of happiness for caring about them before the core. Immediately, Ben calls all the Nagas, and he encourages everyone by telling them that this is not the time to celebrate, because more complicated adversities will come. However, this is a new chapter for the Nagas. This place will be a fortress that will be created by their own hands, achieving that they are remembered as legends, so the whole group is excited and encouraged to do it. Few days later, some give context to what happened. First, the rabbits that died in their first fight have been fed to the Nagas. Maria trains some Naga hatchlings, and the other hatchlings go after the gems with a soldier as defender. Later, Ben is with the old man who exchanges the gems for money, so that he gives him silver with the horns of the rabbits. The old man agrees, and he buys it. At one point, Ben wants to be in the group where this old man told him to join to defeat the spiders, having as an answer that there is no problem, but that he should wait for the second group, because the first one is gone. Also, he asks him at the end of all this what his labyrinth level is, resulting in Ben telling the old man that he does not know. He can only tell him that he was born and raised on the 12th floor, to which the old man is surprised and gives him the context of how the levels are leveled in the labyrinth. Bottom line is that the lower you are, the more your level will be, and your strength is also because of that. The old man gives us some examples of each level, but the first ones are like normal people, but with more strength like a super soldier. The last caves that are from 10 onwards are like Thanos. Yes, it seems like I'm joking, but no, here is the proof. Besides having this strength, these guys that are born from here get powers, going for his goal. Later, he sees the core and jumps to eat it. However, Ben first grabs a spear from a soldier and throws it at the rabbit, managing to finish it off. Ben receives a notification that the core altar has been damaged by 50%, but he sees inside the smoke that the core is fine. Nevertheless, at the moment he sees Trek close to his target, saying in short, he is close to winning, but Ben now defeats him completely. Our protagonist notices that Trek wanted to eat the core, so he asks Maria if that was possible. She replies that with his teeth wouldn't have done nothing. In fact, Ben's spear would have done more damage. Our protagonist gets thoughtful that the rabbit left his companions only to eat his core, and that it was easy for him to do so. Ben says he'll be more careful next time, so he plans to give his spear to the Nagas, but Maria says it's not necessary because that rabbit who passed away was their leader. So, it's just time for all of them to die. In the distance, the person who challenged Trek to do this hears our protagonists from afar, so he goes to what seems to be their leader. He gives him the context of Ben's troops, to which his boss gets angry that he only sent a few rabbits for that arsenal of enemies, but he says that it doesn't matter, just recruit more rabbits and call the mercenary to take care of that labyrinth to see a nice view afterwards. We move on to Ben, who is looking at a window that gives him context of the battle. Maria congratulates him for winning this first fight, but then she notices that Ben is thoughtful, to which she asks him what is going on. Ben answers that a lot of bad things are really happening since the rabbits easily entered the sanctuary. If these creatures weren't interested in the core, they could have been hurt. At this, Maria sheds tears of happiness for caring about them before the core. Immediately, Ben calls all the Nagas, and he encourages everyone by telling them that this is not the time to celebrate, because more complicated adversities will come. However, this is a new chapter for the Nagas. This place will be a fortress that will be created by their own hands, achieving that they are remembered as legends, so the whole group is excited and encouraged to do it. A few days later, some give context to what happened. First, the rabbits that died in their first fight have been fed to the Nagas. Maria trains some Naga hatchlings, and the other hatchlings go after the gems with a soldier as defender. Later, Ben is with the old man who exchanges the gems for money, so that he gives him silver with the horns of the rabbits. The old man agrees, and he buys it. At one point, Ben wants to be in the group where this old man told him to join to defeat the spiders, having as an answer that there is no problem, but that he should wait for the second group because the first one is gone. Also, he asks him at the end of all this what his labyrinth level is. This leads to the old man pestering Ben, asking him if he can shoot lasers or breathe fire, to which our protagonist threatens him that with only his strength he can leave the old man passed away. The old man gets scared and tells him to stop. He also clarifies that, as I said, he will let him join his group, but before this, Ben wants him to keep his level hidden. However, the old man says that if his level is higher, they will give him more money, of course if he needs it. We move on to Maria, who replies to the boss's words when he was encouraging the Nagas. However, our protagonist sees them from afar, making Maria feel sorry for this, but Ben doesn't care, so he asks for context of things when he was outside the labyrinth. Maria tells him that they got a lot of gems and that the rabbits from the fight are still being torn apart to eat later, to which Ben asks for the gems. Maria gives them to him. This way our protagonist uses them instantly to improve the labyrinth. In view of this, Maria is surprised, but Ben calms her down because he has nothing important to do upstairs for now with the money, so we'll spend it here. With the money, he buys a Naga who would be Steve if he had been born with good restrictions, to which he asks him to guard the door along with the soldiers, getting the bug go away. Now our protagonist complains that they should have more gems because with only one summoning they have nothing more, to which Maria asks that they only give her 2 for maintenance. But at the time of this, Ben looks back and wonders if the portal that takes him home can be adjusted in size. Few days pass and now we are in the exploration group to defeat the infernal spiders. We are introduced to the leader, whom we will call a Stephanie. She gives a great context of the spiders and where they will go, and culminating, introducing us to the level of the guys in order. Oh, and our protagonist, at the end, did not use his power 12 to earn more money. The group goes down. They instantly fight against a chameleon, which defeats many low-level subordinates, but Ben can't stand this and cuts it in 2, to which a Stephanie scolds him because he is wasting energy, and if the low levels can't defeat this bug, what will they do next? Ben, in the face of this situation, pretends to be unaware and says that he was just exercising to warm up. Later, the group stays here to rest. The guys notice that there are a lot of gems here, so they get excited. However, they sense something in the atmosphere, for which they throw a flare. They instantly realize that there are corpses of people upstairs. The boss gives orders for everyone to be safe, but in a moment a spider appears and tries to attack her, although she fights it off. All the soldiers activate their shields. Subsequently, the flare goes out. A spider takes the opportunity to attack, but Ben protects her. Then, Stephanie ordered to throw another flare, to which we are shown that all the spiders jump on them, but the high-ranking group protects all of them, making that we are shown superfluous fights that show us the characters and their power level. After a while, everyone is calmer and resting because they defeated the bugs, but Ben notices something in the spider web. He proceeds to warn others that more of these are coming. Instantly, A soldier talks about how they thankfully didn't use the mines. So, Ben asks them to use the mines just in case to make an emergency door. This caused the boys to mock our protagonist, but almost immediately we hear a scream of a girl fighting with a real infernal spider, because we are told that the others were a subspecies. Finally, the girl is defeated. Stephanie sends orders to the soldiers to set the bombs. Ben sees one of the subordinates being crushed, and he recalls a similar scene when he was little. As Stephanie realizes and yells at him to be on alert, Ben updates the leader on the situation. It makes her wonder if he's ever seen this type of spider before, but he remains silent. The higher-ranking subjects shout in a hurry for the soldiers to set the bomb. As they hurry more, one of the higher rank tries to take on an infernal spider. However, Ben tells him not to. He ignores him. Unfortunately, though, he breaks his arm and the bug eats him. The subjects freak out. This prompts Ben to protect them and use his cave boy power level 12, to which the guys run away, and he pushes a Stephanie, who is watching from afar, to save her. He breaks the stones above to make a wall for them to be safe. Faced with this action, the leader feels bad. However, Ben reassures her that he will see her upstairs. The spiders laugh, to which our protagonist observes this and knocks on the door of his labyrinth. This is how this summary ends. This is where the battle begins. Ben's group has everything under control. However, due to overconfidence, they let their guard down. This causes the queen to start moving. It should be noted that Dominic told him about this situation before with his telepathy. The spider starts screaming, which almost stuns our protagonist. At this point, he is shown a warning window because his Nagas are starting to lose. One has lost his life, another has lost an arm, and if he keeps this up, he will pass away. As a result of the seriousness of the situation, Ben activates his powers. Queen attacks him several times, but our protagonist dodges her. This encounter makes him realize that the spiders were stronger, as they had inferior gems inside them. So he removes them and proceeds to throw them to its core and summons a wizard, to which this person casts an ice spell that helps everyone for a moment, because one or another infernal spider was still alive attacking a Naga. The queen takes advantage of this and attacks him, but his companion, whose arm was cut off, protects it with an ice sword. Already all the small bugs have been defeated, only the queen remains standing. The protagonist and she fight, until Ben comes up with a plan, which is to lead her to the second floor. However, he will throw her off in the end. In this way, she will die under her own weight. So, he climbs up, the spider follows him. But omitting this for a moment, Dominic doesn't know what her master is planning and Elsadois know what to do to save him. This leads to her and the Nagas feeling useless, as they feel that their very existence, which is to fight, has been denied. However, she remembers our protagonist said that he is not strong enough to knock the spider down, so she encourages her group, which she does very well, and, finally, asks the wizard how much mana he has left. We move on to the group of people with whom Ben came. They hear footsteps very close to them, to which the spider immediately appears chasing our protagonist. This has repercussions on his team, who worry about him and ask him to return to the group. But Ben does not pay attention because he is more concerned about the spider. Dominic sends a signal to the wizard, so he casts an ice spell on the spider to keep it still. The protagonist takes advantage of this and rushes at it, managing to defeat it. We are shown the history of the battle and the experience gained. With the latter, the attacked Nagas level up and change their physical form. After this, he sends his Nagas to attack, and he mentions to us that the only spider that will be a problem is the one in the background. Dominic responds to this with that it looks like it won't move, to which our protagonist mentions to him that floor 2 is too narrow for her, so if she moves, she will be crushed by the entire second floor. Ben wonders why the wizard doesn't change his appearance. Dominic replies that they need more experience than the attacked Nagas and that they do that by themselves in their labs, which can be achieved when their labyrinth reaches level 4, and for that they need 50 gems to go down. At which Ben asks the baby Nagas to check the loot, and we are shown that he has a large number of gems, getting the labyrinth level up. This will take about 5 days. It is also worth mentioning that our protagonist grabs some gems so that he does not look suspicious on the part of his family. Then, Ben ends up giving a speech and issuing orders of what to do in these days. At one point, Dominic looks at him desperate for her master to give her a compliment for her strategy. Ben notices this and expresses his gratitude for saving him. Later, the scouting party has just arrived at the top, so they are surprised that Ben is ahead of them. This results in Stephanie asking him many questions about how he survived and who he really is, as well as how he knew about the power of the spiders. Ben responds to all this by acting crazy. Stephanie gets fed up with this and asks him that she wants him to return the favor as he saved her. This prompts him to give her his soup to take care of, to which she asks him finally to tell her all his stories from the 10th floor down and that she will contact him later. Back at the old man's jewelry store, the old man is happy about Ben's loot, handing him 400 million won, to which our protagonist remains thoughtful and asks the old man, whom we'll call him Mark, to get him a house worth 300 million won. The old man gets angry, as it is not a lodging, but Ben manages to manipulate him that he will go to another jewelry store, so Mark ends up accepting. Oh, and as a last favor, Ben asks him to pretend he works here, as if the place were a normal jewelry store. So, he decides to call his dad and he complains, having a lot of questions, but managing to get Mark to convince him that this jewelry store is normal. Ben returns to the labyrinth totally exhausted because his dad scolded him because he didn't get a call in 20 days and that he hadn't told him he worked in a jewelry store. Ben asks Dominic to show him what has changed in the place, because it hasn't changed from the outside, to which she replies that it will change when they reach level 5. So Ben looks at the screen quickly. Shortly thereafter, his servant tells him that someone was waiting for him, and that person is the merchant of the labyrinths, who flatters our protagonist for being new in this kind of business. So he continues the conversation with Ben and mentions that he sells objects, potions, etc. At the instant of this, Dominic speaks to Ben through telepathy, saying that the merchant can be a swindler and that he can be an enemy or an ally. It depends on how our protagonist speaks to him, and he also asks him that the first item he buys should be on his recommendation, and listens to her, to which the merchant is thrilled by the great honor he gave him. He thus chooses to give him a vial containing a parasite that is very popular in the dungeons. Our protagonist pays him and receives it, so the dwarf leaves. Later, they talk about the merchant and the parasite, to which Ben throws it to his body, as he trusts Dominic. After this, our protagonists fix and improve the labyrinth. They decide to set up a farm, a training center, a pub, smithy, a laboratory, and a temple of Dominic to worship Ben. The latter sees the map, to which he remembers that there is an area to explore, so he asks her to send the archer and some Nagas to investigate, and she agrees. A week later, we are informed that Ben now has a bigger team, in addition to the exploration that Dominic sent was a success, which causes him to get bored and leaves, saying that he is going to go to sleep and showing us that he already bought a house in the forest. He leaves the labyrinth. As the door closes, a notification of danger appears, which shows that the parasite is beginning to synchronize with Ben, leading to this creature's attempt to take over the body of our protagonist. Stephanie instantly enters his house because she hears a scream and, subsequently, sees our protagonist turning into a bug.